Hello everyone and welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy Heroes video. This video today has been titled How to Duel Galactic Legend Rey, the stats behind Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So if you're like me and you've just now gotten to the point where you can unlock a Galactic Legend and you've beaten Tier 1 and you've beaten Tier 2 and you're now on Tier 3, which costs 60 tokens, and you look at the mechanic, it says Duel, and it gives you this big long list of descriptions on how the abilities work, you might be a little overwhelmed. Plus, you've probably heard people in the community say it's rock, paper, scissors, and if you're anything like me, I can never win rock, paper, scissors. So that might put some fear in your heart when you think about spending a day or 2 days worth of tokens on one attempt. So today I'm here to ease everybody's nerves. For those of you who might be nervous about attempting this, it's not as hard as it seems. It's fairly basic. I would even say it's pretty hard to lose, but I'm going to go over today the general strategy and how to beat the Galactic Legend Rey from Kylo's perspective. I have not attempted it from Rey's perspective versus Kylo, but I've heard they're very similar. So with that said, though, this is specifically for Kylo versus Rey if you're going for Kylo. So I'm going to divide this video into 4 parts. The first part is going to be a description of the event itself. We're going to go over the abilities in the event and kind of how the gameplay works. The second part of this video is going to be a talk over the statistics themselves. The third part of this video is going to be some closing strategies and thoughts that I had. And then the fourth part of this video is going to be us actually going into the event and doing itself with the strategy I outlined. Once we get to the statistics, I'm going to enter a timestamp if you want to skip the statistics, because I know that's not everybody's thing, but I would highly encourage that you listen to the statistics, as it'll help you understand the strategy once we get to steps 3 and 4 better. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the first part of the video, which is going to be a talk about the event itself. So the event starts off with each Galactic Legend having 4 health ticks. The goal of the event is to win each round and win 4 rounds. Each round that you win, you will knock off 1 health tick off of the opposing Galactic Legend. Now, the way you win a round is you get, I believe they're called duel points, and you get 3 duel points and you win a round. There are many ways, or there's a couple of ways you can get a duel point, and we're going to go over that right now. So let me read off the sheet I have here in front of me. The first ability is called Strike. So rock, paper, scissors, right? The first ability is called Strike. It says gain 1 duel point whenever Saber Clash is used. Saber Clash, essentially Rey and Kylo will pick their rock, paper, scissors, right? And then when you use Saber Clash, you resolve it. So if you're gaining 1 duel point whenever Saber Clash is used, unless the opponent uses Feint. That means you can gain a duel point if the opponent used Strike or if the opponent used Parry. Okay? So, in a sense, Strike counteracts the other person's Strike and the other person's Parry. Now, note, if the other person used Strike and you use Strike, you both gain points. Okay? So that's something to note. But generally speaking, there's 2 ways you can get points from using Strike. Okay? Ability number 2, Feint. Gain 1 duel point when Saber Clash is used if the opponent used Strike, otherwise gain no duel points. If the enemy used Parry, lose all duel points. Okay? So you want to use Feint early because Feint is the only way you can score points against Strike. You have to be careful, though, because if your opponent uses Parry, then you're going to lose all the points you just earned, okay? All of them. It doesn't matter if you're at 2, you're at 1, you lose them all, okay? So, Feint, you can score against Strike, but you're taking the chance of you get all your stats stripped from you. Now, I will say this. Parry, we'll go into the statistics later, but Parry is Rey's least used ability, especially after her 4th move. She doesn't use it hardly at all, okay? So, Parry can strip all... If you use Feint and they use Parry, they can strip everything from you. But Rey doesn't use Parry a lot, so you're going to be okay, all right? Let's go into Parry. What does Parry do? Parry, remove all the enemy's duel points when Saber Clash is used if the enemy used Feint. So we just kind of talked about that, right? If the enemy did not use Feint, this ability has no effect. So the only good purpose that Feint is for is trying to strip points away from the other enemy, okay? So you only want to use that in a situation where Rey is at 2 points. If she's at 2 points, chance it, hope that she does parry, or hope that she does feint, strip all our points from her. Now, in the later rounds, her two most popular moves are strike and feint, so you have a good chance of her using feint and you stripping all her buffs. So this actually happens quite a bit. If she gets to 2, use parry, it'll strip her 2 points from her, and then you'll be good. Because, again, most of the time in the latter rounds, or in the latter stages of a round, she uses feint a lot, okay? Finally, there's misplay. What misplay is, there's not really description. It's just like 3 question marks that goes above your Galactic or the enemy Galactic Legend head. It doesn't happen to you, but basically it's a misplay. It's 3 points to use. If you use strike against their misplay, they don't really use an ability against you, and you just get a free point. That's all it is. Now, I will say this. I'm going to outline a strategy for you here in a minute of the general things that Rey uses, percentages, like what rock, paper, scissors that Rey uses in order. But when misplay is used, it changes that up a little bit. So we'll go into that later, but know that misplay does change the strategy a little bit. And again, we'll go into that later, so no worries. So that covers the event in general. If statistics aren't your thing, I will put a time card in to when I actually go into my closing notes and talking about the strategy. But stay tuned for the statistics. I'm going to put graphics up behind me. It'll help you a lot in terms of understanding why I say a certain strategy later when we go into the strategy, okay? So, with that said, let's talk statistics. I completed the event 10 times, okay? Each of the 10 times I completed it, 6 of them had 4 rounds, and 4 of them had 5 rounds. That makes a total of 44 rounds. That is our sample size, okay? So our statistics are going to be pulled from 44 different rounds that I completed against Galactic Legend Rey. So, let's get into it. What does Rey do to start off each round? Rey always uses strike. That doesn't change. Always strike. The only time it changes is if she misplays. If she misplays, you use strike, you get a free point, okay? But if she doesn't misplay, every single time when the round starts, she uses strike. The counteract to strike, to go back to the abilities we were talking about earlier, what is the counteract to strike? It's feint. So you want to open up your round, unless she misplays, every single time with feint. She, let's see the statistics here. Out of the 44 rounds tested, strike was used 30 times, which represents 68%, and misplay was used 14 times, which represents 32%, okay? So no matter what, unless there's a misplay, you're going to want to use feint against her strike, okay? Rey's second move, she almost always uses parry. Rey used parry 21 out of 44 battles as her second move, which represents 47% of the time. The next most popular ability for her second move was strike, which was at 21 of 44 times, which represents 21%. The remaining 26% was split between feints and misplays. So you're pretty much guaranteed that her second move is going to be parry. The move against parry is strike. So your first 2 moves are going to be feint, strike, to counteract Rey's strike, parry, okay? Another way to look at this is excluding rounds where there were misplays in the first 2 moves. So we're going to exclude those because those are free points, those don't count. But excluding rounds where you got those free points, Rey used the strike parry combo to open the match 20 out of 28 attempts, which means 71%. The other 29%, she used strike. So there is a chance she won't use parry, but again, 71% of the time, her opening 2 moves are strike, parry. So what do you use? Feint, strike, okay? 71% of the time. Rey's third move was usually feint. Rey used feint as her third move 26 out of 44 of the rounds I tested, which represents 59%. The next most used ability as her third move was strike at 12 out of 44, which represents 27%. The remaining 14 is made up of misplays. I will say this. Rey did not use parry at all as her third move in all 44 rounds that I tested. So Rey does not use parry in the third move at all. It's one of the first 2, which is usually feint, then maybe strike, and occasionally a misplay, but she does never use parry. So the best thing for Kylo to do, because there's no way to score against Feint. The only way you can score against Feint is not really scoring, it's stripping points away. And if Rey has no point, there's no point in doing that. So if you think that Rey's going to use Feint on the third move, which percentage-wise, 59%, she probably will use Feint. You just want to go ahead and use Feint. You both will get 0 points, and it'll net out, and you'll be fine. So another way of looking at this, similar to the first one, excluding rounds that had misplays in the first 3 moves, Rey used the opening moves of strike, parry, feint, 13 out of 23 rounds, or 56%. So her 56% of the time that she didn't have misplays, and you got free points from it, 56% of the time her opening 3 moves were strike, parry, feint. So Kylo's moves need to be feint, strike, feint, okay? Feint, strike, feint. The next most popular combo for her first 3 moves were strike, strike, feint, which represented 30% of the time. The remaining 14% was other variations, okay? So, but you're pretty much guaranteed strike, parry, feint. That's going to be your 56% of the time, so that's what you're going to go with, unless there's a misplay. Finally, after move 3, which move 4 and onwards, Rey primarily used either strike or feint for the rest of the battle. She occasionally would have misplays, but she rarely used parry. It was split pretty much evenly between using strike or feint. So the best thing for Kylo to do is to use feint, because eventually she will use strike, and feint scores on strike. 46 out of 65 moves after round 4, she used either feint or strike, which represents 70% of the moves after round 4 were either a strike or a feint. Strike versus strike scores. Both opponents score. Okay, so if you both use strike, you both score. But the problem is if you use strike and she uses feint, then she scores. So the best thing for Kylo to do is to use feint. If Rey uses feint, it's a net 0. If Rey uses strike, you get a point. Okay? At this point, in 4 rounds, Kylo should have 3 points and be done. So if Rey does what she normally does, the large percentage of the time, which is open up with strike, go to parry, go to feint, and then go to either strike or feint, Kylo should win in 4 rounds, okay? So that means Kylo uses feint, Kylo uses strike, Kylo uses feint, Kylo uses feint again. Strike, or feint, strike, feint, feint, and most of the time, you're going to win after that, okay? Misplays. When a misplay happens, it changes a little bit, okay? In moves where Rey had a misplay and then had an ability after the misplay, meaning, so if Rey had a misplay and Kylo was at 2 points and then Kylo got the 3rd point on her misplay, the round was over and Kylo won. But I'm talking about times where Kylo or Rey had a misplay, Kylo got like point number 2 on her, and then she had another move after the misplay. In that case, the most popular ability that Rey used was feint, which is 13 out of 20 or 65%. The next most popular ability was 4 out of 20, which was strike, and that represents 20%. So after she misplays, if you're not at 3 points yet, she will most likely use feint, and then if not feint, she'll probably use strike. So again, when you expect her to use feint, you need to use feint as well, okay? Another thing I'll say on misplays is they appear to be random. I tried to see if there's like a pattern, or like, let's say I did X, Y, Z in a row and it caused a misplay. I couldn't come up with anything. It truly appears to be random. Some other general notes. Rey's health did not seem to impact her strategy. So let's say she's underneath 50% health. I couldn't tell that affected her strategy. And I will say this, in terms of overall statistics, out of 197 moves she completed in all 44 rounds I tested, 77 of those 197 moves were strikes, which represents 39%. 57 out of those 197 moves were feints, which represents 29%. 35 out of those 197s were misplays, and the least used was 14%, and that's parry. So she very rarely uses parry. Closing notes. So let's go into the actual strategy before we test this, okay? So, Kylo's strategy should be to open up with feint against Rey's strike, unless there's a misplay, and then you want to use strike. Kylo's second move should be to use strike against Rey's likely parry, unless the first one was a misplay. If the first one was a misplay, you're probably going to want to use feint because Rey's probably going to use feint. Kylo's third move should be feint, as Rey will likely use feint as well, unless there was a misplay in the previous turn. Again, in Ray's turn, she usually uses feint. If she doesn't use feint, she uses strike. So if Kylo uses feint on the third move of Ray, that means they're either going to be a net 0 or it's going to be 1 point for Kylo if she uses strike, which is her second most popular ability for her third turn. As far as the fourth move, it's pretty much a toss-up for Kylo to either use strike or feint. Strike would award both parties a point if Rey uses strike, whereas feint would award Kylo a point if Rey uses strike. If Rey uses feint, there are no points, and that's okay. It just keeps the battle going on longer without giving Rey any points. So I do want to pause right here and say, I have said multiple times that in move 4 and afterwards, Rey typically uses feint or strike. So if you expect her to use feint or strike, you should use feint yourself, because feint scores on strike, so you'll get a point if she uses strike. Or if she uses feint, it's just a net wash, and neither one of you will get points. The chance you're taking is that Rey will use parry. And again, I've said this earlier, Rey does not use parry hardly at all after move or moves 4 and onwards. So that it's a very small chance, but the chance you are taking if you use feint is that Rey will use parry and you'll lose all the points you've built up. So if you're not comfortable with that, what you can do is, instead of using feint, you can either use parry or strike. Strike, if she uses feint, she'll get a point. Strike, if she uses strike, you'll both get points and you won't lose any. And if you use parry and she uses strike, she'll get a point. That's just 1 point. But if she uses feint, you'll strip her points from her. So if you're not comfortable using feint on feint and you're afraid to lose your points, you can either use strike or parry and make up the difference, okay? If Rey gets to 2 stacks, I think I mentioned this earlier, if she gets to 2 points, you want to use parry, because again, she's likely to use feint. Feint is one of her abilities she uses a lot in the later round, or the later moves of a round. So if you use parry, if she has 2 points, dual points, you likely can use parry, and there's a good chance she would use feint and you'd be able to strip her points away, okay? Worst case is you use parry and then she uses strike and she gets a point and she wins a round. But it's really hard to lose this event, guys. I'm telling you, you're going to be okay. So, with that said, I never lost using this strategy. I believe that I can go in here now and test it and win. So, with that said, on camera, live, not going to edit this. This is me using my strategy I just laid out to be able to beat this event. So, let's go into battle and test my theory out. Statistics don't lie, and they should work, all right? So, let's go ahead and go in. Let the cinematic go through. Boom. Rey, wherever you are, you're hard to find. And you're hard to get rid of. I pushed you in the desert because I needed to see it. I needed you to see it. Who you are. You're lying. I never lied to you. You don't know the whole story yet. J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson couldn't make a decision and was fighting with each other. I mean, what? It was Palpatine who had your Terrence taken. He was looking for you. Stop it. All right. Okay. So, Rey's most commonly, or Rey 100% of the time, unless she misplays, which she didn't, is going to use strike to start her move up with. So we're going to use feint. Boom. Strike. Saber clash. We have a point. Her next most, or she misplayed. Perfect. 3 points for us. Thank you. And then her next most used ability after a misplay is feint. I'm not going to use feint. I'm going to use parry. She used feint, like I said. Resolve. Misplay. Thank you. There's our points. Boom. Round 1 is done. Let's move on to round 2. Alright. Feint, because she's going to use a strike. Boom. Point number 1 for Kylo. She's going to use parry. Let's use strike. Boom. Point 2 for Kylo. She's most likely going to use feint here. So let's use parry. Boom. She used feint. Misplay. Thank you very much. 3 point. And move on to round 3. Boom. It's this easy, guys. Like, I'm telling you, statistics don't lie. That's why statistics are great. Moving on to round 3. Open up with feint. She's going to use strike. Boom. Strike. Saber clash. Next ability, she's going to use parry. Let's use strike. Parry. Saber clash. Most likely she's going to use feint next. We're going to use parry. Feint. Let's go saber clash. I'm going to go strike this time in hopes that she uses strike as well. But she might use feint. She used strike. Perfect. Resolve. Done deal. I win. Round 4. This is easy, guys. It's not hard. Alright, misplay. Opens up with misplay. So we're going to get our free points. Now, after misplay, most of the time, I think, what's the percentage? After misplay, the most popular ability was for 13 out of 20 attempts for 65%. The most popular ability at 65% was feint. So I'm going to use parry. Boom. She used feint. Resolve. I'm going to use strike. She used strike. We both have points. I'm going to once again use strike. She used strike. Boom. Game, set, match. That easy, guys. You know why the Emperor's always wanted you dead. I'll come tell you. It's that easy, guys. It's not hard. There is a definite strategy to it. I do want to make a note here, which is that I had kept using parry when I was expecting her to use feint. You can use feint against her feint. The reason why I was using parry is because I did not want to chance using feint and then her using parry, which would then cause me to lose the points I had stacked up. When she used strike in that clip, if I had been using parry, or I'm sorry, if I had been using feint like I suggest, I would have actually gotten the point from her using strike and then the match would have been over. But then again, I do want to make the point, the reason why I was using parry instead of using the net null effect of using feint versus her feint is because I did not want to chance losing a point or losing all my points if she used parry and I was using feint. So if that makes sense, I did want to add that in there towards the end of the video. As long as you use what I put up behind on the screen, feel free to screenshot it, share it around, do share this video. Statistics don't lie. They will get you through the event. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So with that said, do like, do subscribe, do share this video around. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.